the ITRE Committee, Mrs. Adina Johanna-Valean, honourable members of the ITRE Committee and ENVI Committee. I am glad to be here in front of you today. This is not the first time I stand before the European Parliament, but for me it is certainly the most important. I am humbled and honoured by the decision of the President-elect Ursula von der Leyen to choose me as the Commissioner-designate responsible for energy. And it is a privilege to present my plans for your scrutiny, to be part of the European democracy in action. The thousands of people who take to the streets in Europe and around the world remind us constantly that there is nothing more urgent than climate and energy action. This is the number one concern of the European citizens. That is why the President-elect has identified the European Green Deal as a flagship priority for her Commission. Energy policy will be essential to deliver on this priority. I know from personal experience, I was the Minister for Economy and Infrastructure, also responsible for energy, how challenging it is to work in this field. I know how important the task ahead is and how enormous the responsibility it entails. Over the past 5 years, the EU has made huge strides towards a real energy union across all its 5 dimensions. All the measures of the clean energy package were agreed by the Parliament and the Council with broad support. This is a great legacy to build on. I want to acknowledge the work done by Commissioner Miguel Arias Cañete and Vice President Maros Šefčovič to get us where we are today. But most of all, let me pay tribute to the contribution of the ITRE and ENVI committees. Your work has made this progress possible. Thanks to you, the Parliament managed to lift the level of ambition of the initial clean energy package proposals and to ensure that each proposal was adopted with large majority. On average, 80% of the members voted in favour. This shows the value of unity. When we are united, the EU can deliver real change. But this is not the time to pause. Achieving climate neutrality by 2050 is the only sensible way to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius and prevent an environmental crisis. That is why the President-elect committed to make Europe the first climate-neutral continent by 2050 and proposed a European Green Deal to be taken forward under the guidance of Executive Vice President Frans Timmermans. I want to set out today how I intend, if confirmed as Commissioner, to advance on the EU energy policy. I embrace the vision of making Europe a climate-neutral continent by 2050. Under my watch as the Minister, Estonia adopted a long-term energy action plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. At that time, this target was very ambitious. Today, Estonia is set to overshoot its renewables targets, with 33% in 2020 and 42% by 2030. I have learned that a transition process can work well when some clear choices are made. First and foremost, what all energy actors need from regulators is certainty and predictability. It is key to anchor expectations at an early stage. This is why the Commission will propose a European Green Deal in the first 100 days in office. The centrepiece will be the first European climate law setting the target of climate neutrality by 2050. This will be accompanied by a just transition fund. Having set the direction of travel, we will then take the next steps. We must build on the success of the energy union. Estonians have a reputation for being forward-looking people, but we know that in order to be successful in the future, one must be effective in the present. I commit to working hard on the implementation of the clean energy package. I will ensure Member States deliver ambitious national energy and climate plans by the end of December. Each Member State needs to play its part. In case of an ambition gap, I will make every effort to push Member States in the right direction and work with each of them to reach our goals. We need to tap the full potential of the Clean Energy for All Europeans package. There are more than 100 delegated and implementing acts yet to be adopted. This cannot wait. By implementing the existing legislation, we can reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030. The President-elect has said that we need to be more ambitious when it comes to our 2030 targets. She committed an emissions reduction of at least 50% by 2030, followed by a plan to move towards 55% in a responsible way. I will launch an evaluation about how legislation in the energy sector can deliver a more ambitious targets. Based on this, I will assess on the need to review the legislation. I will contribute to the work on the carbon border tax and on the review of the energy taxation directive that will be led by Paolo Gentiloni. If appointed as Commissioner, I intend to mobilize energy policy at the service of the climate-neutral objective by further developing an integrated, interconnected, and properly functioning single market. I am convinced that a genuine internal market brings significant benefits and is essential in promoting renewable deployment. As a minister, I worked on the synchronization of the electricity network of the Baltic states with the continental network. Seen from Estonia, an electricity system managed and operated under common EU rules is an essential precondition for a well-functioning internal market, energy security and solidarity in times of crisis. I hope to see this project close to completion by the end of this mandate. Unfortunately, integrated markets are not the norm everywhere in Europe. In the electricity market, we need a power system largely based on renewables with improved energy storage and increased interconnectivity. There are still too many blockages to cross-border trade and bottlenecks that need to be removed. We must make sure that interconnectivity targets are reached and that 70% of interconnector capacity is available to the market. I will endeavour to strengthen regional cooperation, in particular the existing 4 high-level groups, and make them work in greater synergy. I also intend to focus on the gas market. Gas will play a role in the transition towards climate neutrality. I want to examine how we can best make the gas regulatory framework and infrastructure fit for the future, contributing to decarbonisation through the use of low-carbon gases, such as hydrogen, and renewables. We also need to empower consumers and benefit from the use of liquefied natural gas. In this area, the cooperation with the United States has been successful. It should be continued. Market integration is also an infrastructural challenge. About €200 billion is needed until 2030 for investment in the missing links in the electricity market. We need networks that can support and promote the use of clean energy based on renewables and better energy storage. To exploit the full potential of our trans-European energy networks, I will complete the review of 10E regulation by 2020. The transition is also a huge investment challenge. We must harness all the instruments available at EU level to leverage private funding for green, future-proof investments. The combined funding under the next MFF could reach up to €132.2 billion. Energy efficiency remains a priority. The principle, energy efficiency first, should be taken seriously across the board. Improving the energy performance of buildings and speeding up renovation rates can be a game changer. The obstacles are well known, but we can explore new solutions, especially in financing. Good examples in local and social housing can be found in many member countries. I believe that we can become climate neutral and preserve the competitiveness of our economy and industries at the same time. There are quality jobs to be created in the clean energy technology sector if Europe is in the lead. I see smart integration of electricity, heating and cooling, transport and industry as crucial in order to meet our objectives. Finally, I will be attentive to energy prices and costs on consumers and businesses, and in particular to the impact that climate transition has on energy-intensive industries. I am a liberal who has always believed in individual freedoms without forgetting fairness. Climate transition will deeply affect many, and some more than others. I could quote statistics, but it is not just numbers. It is about real people, their lives, their stories. Entire sectors, families, villages, from Galicia to Silesia, will face a lot of changes around them. I know that firsthand because I come from Estonia, where oil shale is still widely used. The President-elect has committed to establish a just transition fund to support coal and carbon-intensive regions and islands affected by the transition, an idea first developed by Parliament. I'm sure Professor Puusek remembers that well. I see this fund as a way to enable regions to develop and finance concrete projects which can transform their economies and create jobs. We can build on the existing coal regions in transition initiative to make the fund a success. To me, fairness also means a renewed fight against energy poverty. It is not acceptable that 8% of the European population, this is 50 million people, is unable to properly heat their homes, and many more Europeans struggle to pay energy bills. I want to use the Energy Poverty Observatory and rapidly implement the legislative provisions on energy poverty. I intend to engage more with the Member States and the Covenant of Mayors. The report of Theresa Griffin presented last year has laid the groundwork for this. It is unthinkable that Europe can become climate neutral by 2050 without a colossal effort in research and innovation to develop new technologies. The EU is a research giant in the energy sector, second only to the US. We are world leaders in number of energy patents, but our investments are not increasing fast enough. I will work with my colleague Maria Gabriel on how to use the New Horizon Europe as a catalyst for more public and private investment. The Strategic Energy Technology Plan has a potential we need to use to the maximum. I intend to develop an agenda for greater digitalization of the energy sector, covering the implementation of the digital single market and the clean energy package rules on smart grids, data access, and interoperability, but also aspects like artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. Europe needs to push other major emitters to be more ambitious and consistent in implementing the Paris Agreement. I will use energy dialogues to open markets for our clean energy business and for our connectivity projects, and of course, to promote security of supply. It is also time to leverage the strength of our currency and have more energy contracts denominated in euro. Energy can contribute to stabilization in our neighborhood, for instance, in Ukraine, where the trilateral gas dialogue with Russia should be continued in view of reaching an agreement by the end of this year. For many years, I was a member of the Estonian Parliament. Therefore, I intend to work very closely with the European Parliament, explaining what we are doing each time we have a new development. I will be available to you. I grew up in Estonia when Europe was a dream, an ideal, a hope for change and freedom. I believe in Europe. I am ready to do my part in a Europe that strives for more with determination, but also with humility. If I can count on your support, I am certain that together we can build a Europe that leads the way in climate action and energy policy. Thank you.